Hey everybody, welcome to the In All Things podcast. It's time to see God in everything. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the In All Things podcast. My name is Mitch Frost and I am joined today by Pastor Steve Markle. Good morning, how are you?
Good, man. I'm got wings, I got Red Bull ready to go.
You got wings or you got Red Bull?
Have you seen their commercial?
Yeah, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we both have Red Bull, so I guess today's episode is sponsored by Red Bull.
Yes, the sugar-free.
Because Red Bull gives you wings. There you go. Well, how was your week? How was this past week for you? We'll get into Sunday in a minute, but anything exciting in this past week?
The week that passed, my wife and I got away. We try to get away once a year together for 3 or 4 days if possible. And we've been kind of going through different cities in our country to just visit different cities we haven't been to. So we went to Boston, which was a lot of fun. 3 days there and got to do a lot of different things. Fenway Park, the Freedom Trail with a tour guide, which I am not a history guy. I just don't get into that. But it was awesome, like walking through the city, seeing the historical sites and having somebody explain them, what happened, the Boston Massacre, explaining all these different things that are part of our history, the Tea Party, Boston Tea Party, all that stuff. It was really cool. I really enjoyed that. Got a lot of walking in. We had a great time. The weather was beautiful. So
nice.
That was a nice part of our week last week.
Yeah, that's cool.
How about you?
You told me that you guys are going to do whale watching. Did you?
We did. I should have said that. Yes. And that was one of those things that another thing, like Sherry wanted to do, I'm like, I'm going to be the good husband. And she was surprised. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting more mature or less selfish. I don't know. Maybe I'm listening to my own preaching. I don't know. Maybe. But anyway, we got on the whale watching tour at 10 a.m. I didn't realize on a boat with several hundred people, and it's like a 25-mile ride in the boat just to get out far enough to where they believe the whales are. And anyway, so they said if you have motion sickness, we suggest sitting on the lowest level near the back. So we did that, got a table. But then when we got to where they were seeing the whales, we went out on the deck and we're out there right where they were, and it was pretty awesome. Pretty cool. Like 20, they spotted like 20. I learned a lot. They know them by name, by their tail.
It's crazy.
They can identify the different spots, and that's this one. That's their calf, which is what they call their babies. And they would just come up, and it was the humpback whales mostly. There's one other kind, but they're the length of a school bus. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of fascinating and enjoyable, and
nice.
All
That's
kinds
cool.
of really cool stuff. There was a lot of recommendations that people had given us, and we knocked a lot of those things off the list. Mike's Pastry was unbelievable. Anybody that's familiar with Boston will know about Mike's Pastry. They have a couple different locations, but the one we went to was on the north end near whale watching. After we walked there, and the pastry counter it's all Italian ladies that work there, cash only. I mean, it's
authentic.
It's serious business, and there's like big pieces of cake and cannoli and eclairs, and so we were like, oh my, what are we gonna get? No, we gotta get. So we got 2 things each, and then we shared them. But it's like they have in the lines, but they move everybody through. You get up there, like, what do you want? You better know. You tell them. They put it in this box. They have the string they pull from the ceiling. They wrap the box up. You give them the cash. They're out the door, and the line just keeps on going. And it was pretty awesome. And we sat somewhere right there along the street at like a really quaint like coffee shop where they were serving out on the street, and we had that box, and then there was a sign that said you can't eat things that are not bought from here, but we're paying for the coffee. And so I was like, well, we can't eat it. And Sherry's like, I'm eating it. And I was like, you're gonna do that?
Wow.
I couldn't believe her. I was like, I can't do this. But then every time the waitresses would go inside, she was like, and I was like, well, okay, I got it. She's gonna eat it, so I guess I have to commit this sin with you. So that was it. So it was fun. I mean, like ramble on there, but we had a fun time. The ballpark was great because I like to see as many ballparks as possible. And Fenway is classic, over 100 years old, with the big monster, the green monster.
But you sent us a picture. $60 parking. Is that true?
Yes.
That's
yes.
insane.
It's $60 parking in the parking lots around the stadium. And a lot of the places I've been to, it's like $20 now in most places, but 60. Everything was more expensive. I mean, we didn't pay because what we did is we Ubered from the airport to the hotel.
Oh, so got a hotel. Took a picture.
Yes, I just wanted to. I was just showing you. We didn't pay it. I was like, that was crazy because we walked. I mean, a lot of walking. Got our steps in, but it was like 20 20, 25-minute walk from our hotel to that. And we Ubered a few places, but tried to walk most of it. But yeah, I mean, that was more than the tickets to the game cost, actually. So, it was, yeah.
Jared, you went to the World Series last year?
Yep.
Was parking like that expensive? $60?
$200.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like, it's like when you think about it, like the hotel's just ridiculous. I mean, like when I was looking for a hotel, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's nowhere. It was $400 a night, and there was nowhere that I found something cheap. And then I found out it was like a bedroom with a bathroom in the hallway. And Sherry's like, no. So neither was I. I wasn't in for that. So anyway, but we got a good place where we could walk everywhere. So you save money on renting a car and parking and all of that. Because even hotels, you're like, it's not just the fee, it's like the parking fee. If you park your car at the hotel overnight, it's like another $60 a night. So anyway, everything's expensive in Boston. So yeah.
But good trip.
It was great.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that I don't know where we're going next. So have to figure that out. Colorado is on the list. Colorado Springs, got to get there sometime, and some other places. We have a list. But
nice.
Yeah. So what about you?
Well, not as exciting as that. No, I didn't go anywhere. I was
You and
here.
Jared miss me here in the office?
No. We just kind of hung out and had a good time. But no, pretty normal week for me. Monday to Thursday worked, so there's that. Friday, we hung out with some close friends. Saturday morning was not the highlight of my weekend because for those of you that go here, you know that kind of in front of our church property, that used to be our church property, we sold, and now there's kind of a strip mall going in the middle of construction. So we got asked last week, 2 weeks ago, the guy who owns that land reached out to you, right? And emailed you and just said, hey, I know you guys have a youth group. Is there anybody that would like to come pick up trash on this construction site?
Right.
I'll pay you $1,000 is basically what he said. And so we said yes. Deep down, I was like, I don't know if we should say yes, but I was like, we'll say yes, we'll do it. And so me and a couple other guys went out there on Saturday. We were out there for like 4 hours. And it was brutal, and there was a lot of trash.
You earned your money.
Oh, yeah, we earned the money. Yep. So that was Saturday morning. Yeah. Saturday night, though, got to go to a crew game. So last crew game of the season, home game, I should say, against the New York Red Bulls. And, oh, wow. I feel like a traitor now that we're drinking these. And, yeah, so for those of soccer fans or not soccer fans right now, it's almost playoff time. The crew has been playing pretty terrible. We're on this streak of we'll go up in a game, and in the last 10 minutes of the game, we'll either get beat or end in a tie. It's been happening like 5 games in a row. So we should already be qualified for the playoffs. We aren't. So we have 3 games left, including the one we went to on Saturday. We have to win all 3 in order to go to the playoffs. Right. So we won on Saturday.
And it was exciting because you gave me the recap of how.
Yeah. So we got scored on. Into the second half. So we went down 1-0. New York was up, and we were just not doing much the whole game. Like we just were not playing great. And then if you know soccer, you know there's 90 minutes in a game. The 88th minute we score. So puts it at 1-1. And if you also know soccer, you know that based on how many injuries there are, they'll add stoppage time. And so they added 4 minutes of stoppage time. In the 93rd minute, we scored a second goal. So we won.
Wow.
Insane. So that was cool. First time at the new stadium. First time
for you to
anything like that.
See
so
that
was awesome.
Looks like an awesome stadium.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It is so nice.
Yeah.
So when the next World Cup comes here in 4 years, it's going to be in the U.S., all over the U.S., and teams want to play at the Crew Stadium.
Yeah,
that just shows you. So anyway, so that was fun. And then let's get to Sunday.
We kicked off a new series called Offended. It was a lot of fun. It was a good day. It's fun to talk about something that is absolutely so relevant in our culture today, that people are more offended than they've ever been. Yep. And we're taught to be offended. Media has told us to be more and more offended, and it's almost like everything you say could be twisted and taken the wrong way by somebody. So anyway, we talked about that and what the Bible teaches. We really honed in on James chapter 1, verse 19, about being quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry, which is just a great formula for success in this area of not being offended. So that's the launch of a 4-part series.
Did you feel good about the first part and kind of how you set it up and where we're going to go?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good feedback from people that really hit home to a lot of people. I could tell. 11 o'clock went even smoother than 9:30. I don't know. I felt just more comfortable with the material at 11, and so it was a good day. a good launch to the series. People are excited about it. Had some people like, I'm not going to miss any of these because I really want to hear this. So
I mean, I think it's one of those topics that couldn't be more relevant. You know, we're all living that right now, and so I think it's really good. What for you? You know, kind of. You're preaching this whole series. Nobody's taken any of them for you. What are you hoping comes out of a series like this? You know, as you're thinking about this church as a whole, and what do you think? What would be a success to you if it was a result of a series like this called Offended? What do you think?
That's a good question. I think one of the things I talked about yesterday that I think matters more than anything is what Jesus said the greatest commandments are: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And so there's nothing about living angry and living offended that helps us to be more loving. It's just that's not who we should be. So I think if I could think about a big takeaway for our church would be that people that we're known for, Sycamore Creek is known for being a loving church, that we love people and we're not offended by who they are, by what they do. I mean, like doesn't mean and I said this yesterday because some people like to, I guess maybe misconstrue your words, but never condoning of sinful behaviors or attitudes that are anti-biblical or anything like that. But love people for who they are, where they are, and you know, you can love people to Jesus. You can't hate people to Jesus or be angry and think that's going to save the world. So I think if we as a church individually, I think we have an amazing church. I mean, when I say the church, I'm not talking about the building, I'm talking about the people. And we have an amazing congregation that is very loving. And it's just, I don't think we have a lot of people who are just judgmental, who are just looking to be angry, but we can fall into that very quickly. There's a lot of conversations that are going on in the world that can cause you to get angry. And as Christians, we can get so caught up in political things that we can get angry about, and we can lose that loving side that we need to have of bringing people to Jesus, because you know it's more important to make a difference, like I said yesterday, than it is to make a point. And so I think that we need to have our church at the end of this be thinking about, what can I do to make a difference? And that's one of the things I think it really coincides well with our outreach of the month, which Christy talked about yesterday, which is random acts of kindness. Yeah. Like, I think it's just putting it in perspective of like, okay, people are going to be offended all the time in this world, but one of the least offensive things you can do, the opposite of being offensive, is being kind and finding a way to randomly be kind to people. And it's shocking and it's wonderful and it's nice. And when you're on the receiving end of that, it feels so good. And like, you know, I think if we are more that way, the offensive stuff gets to be less and less in our lives.
Yeah.
So what's your take?
Really good.
Yeah.
No, that's good. And I do think like there's just so much, you know, I would agree. I don't think we walk around on Sunday morning with our congregation and think, wow, there's just some super angry. And yet again, we're all together on that one day, that 1 hour, that one whenever. People are excited to do it and be here. So, but we know outside of that, there are a lot of people consumed by anger and by judgment and by those different things and being offended. And so I do think it's a really good conversation. It's funny, me and my wife were having this conversation on the way home from the crew game about how there's just some people that they want to be angry. I think you said that in your message actually at one point yesterday. Yeah. Like, there's just some people who want to be angry. And like going to a sporting event, it was sold out. There's 20,000 people. And like, there was just some people there that I was like, they just want to be angry. Like, they're just going to yell at everything that happens in the game. They're just going to be mad at the workers. They're just going to, they're consumed and they want to be mad. And we went to the parking garage and we're leaving. And we're, oh my gosh, we just won. This is great. Everybody's hyped up. We get in the car. I pull out and I just get in line because everybody's waiting to get out of this parking garage, right? And you know how parking garages work. And there's a car that's I'm kind of blocking, and they had gotten in like 10 minutes after us. So me and Lex are just sitting there talking, awesome game, blah, blah, blah. And I saw the two guys get in this car, and that's it. And then a couple minutes later, one of them gets out, and he comes up to my window and kind of like hits the window. And so and he's super, like I can tell by his face, like he's mad. So I run down the window, and I'm just like, hey. And he starts like yelling at me. And he's like, and to be very honest with you, I don't know what he was trying to get me to do. Because I couldn't
back up, could you?
There was nobody behind me.
Oh, okay.
So we were the last ones in this line. And so he gets out and he's just yelling at me. And I'm like, and this is no joke, this is my response. I'm sorry, what happened? What did I do wrong? And he goes over to the driver's side and he's cussing me out and this guy's being this and I'm like, and I looked at Lexi and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And he comes back over to me and he's like, don't you realize that the exit, there's another exit that way? And I was like, no, I had no idea. I didn't see any cars go that way.
I've not been here.
I was like, sorry, I didn't know that.
Right.
And he's like, it just keeps cussing at me. And he's just yelling at me.
Right.
So I just backed up and I went that way. And he was right. There was an exit that way.
Right.
But I had no idea.
Right.
And it's just like,
he thought you were just sitting there blocking his way to get
just for fun,
out.
I guess. Like
Right.
that's
But
that's
weren't you
the
waiting
way-
for the car in front of you to move?
Correct.
And that was going to happen at some point.
At some point, right. It's just, but we just had this, it was funny driving home. We were just like, I don't understand the...
And he was probably a Crew fan that was happy 10 minutes ago.
Right.
And he got angry. Sports is one of those things that people can get very offended. I brought up the news story with you yesterday too. I mean, speaking of soccer, a lot of people are aware of what happened in Indonesia at a soccer event. And I read about it too. Last I heard, it was 175 people have died.
They moved down. They renounced it to 129.
Okay, well, that's better. But still, 129 people have died in a stampede, trampled to death, end of a game. And they don't even allow the opponent's fans to come into these games.
Right.
So it was all home team fans mad that their team lost after not losing for, did you read like how long?
I forget how long,
it was like
but it's
ridiculous
been a really long time.
streak of never losing.
Yep.
They started throwing bottles and cans at their own team because they were mad that they lost a game. It wasn't even an opponent there.
Right.
And the police shot tear gas into the crowd. People started panicking, couldn't breathe. They trampled each other, and 120 some people are now dead.
It's horrible.
And over anger over a sports team losing, offended by their team not winning a game.
Yeah.
How crazy.
It's an outlet for people to just let out their frustration.
I mean, that's just extreme. That's not how
it is, right.
most people are, but I mean, I think you just watch. If you watch, you know, you don't watch the news much, and I don't either. But we get it a lot from social media and things like that, outlets, and you just think that the rants and the anger that people have over both sides, political, all the things that are going in our world today. It's crazy. Yeah. So
Anyway, we could talk. I mean, we could do a series of podcast episodes on this offended series that we're starting here at the church. You know, there's not going to be enough weeks or time on stage for you to cover everything we could talk about.
No.
So yeah, this is a good way to start this. But what I want to do is I want to shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
We're going to get into a conversation today, and it's funny because you actually brought this topic, I guess, to my attention. I knew about it. I've heard about it. But I didn't even think about, that would be a good fitting conversation for us to have. And you were like, hey, have you heard about this? Maybe we could do something on it.
Right.
And so I thought it would be interesting for us to have that conversation today. There's a new term, I guess we could call it, a new saying that's going around, and it kind of started on TikTok, but it's kind of gotten a lot bigger than that, and people outside of TikTok are talking about it now.
Right.
And the term is quiet quitting. So you brought this to my attention, so obviously you've heard it.
Yeah.
But how would you describe? I'm going to read the Wall Street Journal wrote about it, so I'm going to read their kind of statement on it here in a minute. But what's your opinion, or what do you think this really is?
I think what it is relating to work, doing the bare minimum at work, doing what is absolutely required and nothing above and beyond. It's not going above and beyond on your job, shutting down if your job is 9 to 5. At 5 o'clock, I don't answer emails. I don't answer texts. I don't talk to work people. I don't do anything until 9 o'clock the next day. And putting in the extra effort, no. Not getting in the hustle, which we used to call it, people that really care adamantly about their job, that want to be super successful about their job or building their company, whatever it is, wherever you work. The idea of just doing the bare minimum just to get paid, and that's it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So let's read the Wall Street Journal's kind of take on it.
Yeah.
They describe it pretty well. And then we'll kind of go through some pros and cons of what this could mean. And I think it's going to be interesting for you as, the pastor of a church and in a lot of ways the boss of a team and a staff. I think it might hit closer to home for you a little bit more to talk about
we're just a
some
small
things.
Team, so it's not a it's not a big company, but yeah.
Right. So the Wall Street Journal writes this.
Okay.
Not taking your job too seriously has a new name: quiet quitting. The phrase is generating millions of views on TikTok as some young professionals reject the idea of going above and beyond in their careers, labeling their lesser enthusiasm a form of quitting. It isn't about getting off the company payroll, these employees say. In fact, the idea is to stay on it, but focus your time on the things you do outside of the office.
Yeah. I think there's a good push toward work-life balance that a lot of people need. And I think people that get caught up in the hustle culture can go so far and obviously ignore their family and not have a good balance where they have recreation in their life and other things that make them happy besides work. And we don't want to be identified just as our work, right? So there's something about balance. Do you think that it is something that is more for the millennials and Gen Zs, or do you think it's something that affects people my age as well?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say it's probably millennials and Gen Zs that would be the majority of this kind of thing, because there is such a strong push to work-life balance, like you said, and there's a super big push to kind of, I mean, we've talked about this before on this podcast. This generation is motivated by creating something for themselves. And so I think this whole form of quiet quitting kind of thing is like, I have a job that I'm going to get paid for, but I'm going to put my real effort and energy into something that could maybe turn into a job someday, or something maybe that I just love a lot, or a passion that I have.
Sure.
I feel like that's why I would say probably Gen Z more than anything is kind of leaning this way, because it's like I can have a source of income and I'll just do what needs to do to get that income, but it's not going to be everything to me.
Yeah, I think it affects more people 35 and under from what I've read.
Yeah.
And more people are honest about it maybe at that age, or they post about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just heard a Gallup poll that was done that said about 50% of the workforce would describe themselves this way.
Wow.
Does that surprise you? Like half of the workforce?
That's higher than I thought.
Yeah, that's what I just read, that like a new poll that just came out. Yeah.
So what do we do with this?
I mean,
like if this is the trend that we're heading towards, if this is the direction it seems like the generation's going, what do we do with that?
That's a good question. I mean, like I would go after the why first. Like, why is this happening? And do you think that COVID and work from home from COVID made it worse?
Absolutely. I think that might have expedited it. You know, to bring it more into now it's happening in 2022. Maybe without COVID, it would have been 2025, 2026 before people were like, oh, I'm just done with my job. I just want to get paid and move on.
Right.
But I think COVID probably sped it up a little bit.
Yeah. And people realized they were allowed to work from home for a period of
companies
time.
realizing that we can just close down our offices and have people work from home. Like, you know. But
there's something about a lot of jobs that require synergy with the coworkers. And so if you have, and we'll talk about, I'm sure, about our team and how we work together, but like if you have a team like us, and if you say, well, the office closes at 4, I'm not answering your text, Steve, after 4, or if Jared has something and he asks a question in our group message, I'm not answering because I'm not on the clock. That's not going to go very well, right? And it's not going to help the organization. Yeah. And so that kind of attitude is something, though, that is prevalent today, that is creeping up more and more. And I think in a church environment like ours, it would be very hurtful if that was the way somebody behaved. It would not go well.
Yeah, for sure.
But in other bigger environments, are like, what are you going to do? And the problem today, too, I think that employers face is it's hard to find employees. It's hard for some reason to find people that want to work. So that they get to the point where they have to accept it. That there are going to be some people that just do the bare minimum,
but they just need bodies,
right? But then is that fair to say, oh, well, you're not good enough because you're doing what the job says you have to do?
Right.
I'm doing the things on the job, and I'm putting in the hours that it says. So what's wrong with that?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because I think that would be interesting for you to kind of weigh in on as a quote unquote boss. I know that's weird for you being more of a pastor than a boss, but in some ways you are. And so I kind of wanted to bring that up. Like, you know what, let's say you did find yourself in a situation like this with an employee, right? And there was somebody who was literally pointing at the job description, pointing at the things that are asked of them and saying, look, I'm doing A, B, and C. What more do you want from me? Like everything that I'm paid to do, I'm doing. Right. Maybe I'm not going above and beyond, but what the job you pay me to do, I'm doing. Because that seems to be the argument that a lot of these people are falling into. Is like, well, if I look at my week to week responsibilities, I'm getting them done. Right. And they might not be, oh my gosh, amazing, but I'm getting them done. So isn't that what I'm getting paid?
The ambiguous bullet point of other duties as assigned. I say, well, like this is the way our organization works, and it doesn't function healthily. Sure. Like, I think we should try to stay away as a boss and as coworkers away from always maybe being lazy during the workday. Therefore, we are bugging each other at night and on the weekend when we shouldn't have to. Sometimes it's because we aren't working smart. And and you know, I don't try to hit up staff on Fridays. So we work on Sundays. So Fridays is an off day for us. And so I try not to send work related emails or texts on Friday or expect them to be responded to right away on Fridays and Saturdays. But like, man,
things come up.
Things come up. I mean, Saturday is the day before game day for us. So like, if there isn't a message going around and you're like, well, Saturday, I'm not going to answer this, and it's about some vital element to our service on Sunday, you can't do that.
Right.
But on the other side of it, I think that a lot of workplaces have gone to a more relaxed environment of getting your work done, but always being available. Kind of like, you know, like flex time, you know, like if you want to take the day off, that's fine. Just answer my text if I have a question for something, you know, like being more available. So I think it really varies by company.
Yeah, sure.
And I think the biggest thing, and going back to the question, what do we do? It's like, if somebody's not motivated and doesn't love what they do, the chances of them really wanting to go above and beyond are slim, right?
Yeah, maybe that's kind of where the conversation has to go, right? There's a difference between a job and a vocation or like a calling, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there is a difference between like, you know, I'm just doing this job because I need a job. I'm just doing this job because I have to make money.
Right.
Or I'm doing this job because I love it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and this is why I think this conversation is a really hard one to have, when I worked at a pizza place, okay, I didn't love working at the pizza place. It was a job that made me money. But I worked my butt off at the pizza place. You know, like I did as much as I could to make, it wasn't a great establishment. It's closed now. There's reasons behind that.
Yeah.
But I tried my best while I was there multiple times a week to make it better for the customers, for everybody involved. So I do think there is a big piece of the conversation, right? Do I love the job? Do I not? Do I care about the job? Do I not? That has to play into it. But at the same time, there might be some of this that's just personal.
Well, I think a lot of it the questions come up, is it the employer? Is it the job? Or is it the actual person?
Yeah, sure.
Because I do think so much of it is intrinsic in the person's character qualities of what they're about. And that doesn't mean a person that isn't a passionate, go above and beyond person isn't a good person.
Yeah.
But when it comes to work, like, and I'll say the same, like before I was in ministry, I had some different jobs and like in food service and things like that. And it's like, I always wanted to think, what can I do to make this better? How can I be how can I be a better waiter so I can make better tips and be more strategic? And how can I please the boss so that they think more of me and want to give me a raise and like be motivated by that? Because, you know, I don't think quiet quitters get great promotions and they don't care. Maybe they're just like, I make what I make, whatever. Yeah. Like, but if you want to move up the ladder, you want to get promoted, you want to get raises, I think there's this push to do more. Yeah,
for sure. For you, from your point of view, do you expect your staff, the people that you trust, to bring on to, yes, it's a small team and it is different from quote unquote business, but do you expect those people that you bring on to go above and beyond? I know that's a hard question.
No, I think I do. And I think, maybe I'll turn this question on you in a moment, because I think ministry is different. And I think if you don't have a passion for it, you will burn out and you won't want to. I would question people that say they're called to ministry, but then aren't willing to, answer a phone call on their day off. Now, you need to be careful and have work-life balance. Okay, I know that. But like here, we're very flexible with hours. But you know what? We're here for people, and that's what we're all about, right? Serving God, serving people, loving God, loving people. And if we're like, nope, I only love people from 9 to 5, example, last weekend I was in Boston and Sherry and I got back on Thursday. And so I had some, that was like Friday's my day off. So it was like a good week. And then somebody in our church, one of our elders, his wife, her dad passed away on like last Saturday. And she asked me on Monday when we were at the airport going to Boston Monday night if I would do the service. And I said, absolutely. It was Friday. She goes, I'm so sorry. That's your day off. I said, no, that's what I'm here for. Like, I don't just say I'll give up my day off every week, no matter what, but we're here for people. And it's like, yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, it's not like, oh, I thrive on doing funerals or something like that. No, but I love people, and that's what I want to do. So I'm not saying everybody needs to be like me, but I would have a hard time believing in working with people who don't have a passion for it, that want to go above and beyond. And I want to be respectful, though. I don't want to invade your life, Jared's life, Christy's life, Amy's life, Davi's life, where I'm taking away from them having a life. Because I've seen churches like that.
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
it's like, like,
absolutely.
And, but I think, and I mean, I would ask you, what do you feel like is expected? And then do you think I have a work-life balance from your observation?
You personally?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think you're pretty good at being able to kind of turn it off and turn it on in some ways. But I think you have a good mindset of the fact that, yet again, ministry is different. But there's a lot of jobs in the sense of, like you said, you're always on call kind of thing.
Right.
More and more you're seeing that. And yeah, I think you do a good job of respecting. And one thing too, and this goes to you as a boss. I want to say something kind to you as a boss,
nice.
is your staff really well. So you are good at knowing, okay, Jared on Friday nights is going to be at a Mexican restaurant with his family. So you're probably not going to be blowing up Jared's phone on Friday night when he's at that Mexican restaurant.
Or if I send something, I'm not expecting him to reply. But
right. Or, but like
right.
you know us enough to know, okay, I know they have this going on this week. I've talked to them. I care about them. I've invested in them. So, Christy has a surgery going on a couple weeks ago. So I'm not going to blow up her. Like you're you're good at that.
Right.
And I think that has to play a role in it too, from the boss's point of view. It's like when you know the people you're working with or the people that you're leading, and you care about them, you're not going to invade their life or, hey, I know you're about to, go into this big thing or you have this big life situation. Can you do this, and this, and this, and don't make me mad? Like you don't do that kind of stuff, So I think that's a big part of it too.
But do I
that
expect
makes it
you
easy.
to go above and beyond?
I think that you see potential in us and the staff that you have, the staff that you lead. You see a bar that maybe sometimes we aren't meeting, and you're going to find ways to, kind of push us to that level, and I think it does come down to personality sometimes too, for some of us, like we have a desire and a knack to always do something better than we're doing it now. So I think that's a part of it too.
Yeah. I think I work better with those type of people that have that same drive, they want to get better. They want to do their job better. They're not obsessed.
Right.
Like, because I think I could be frustrating for somebody because I'm not one of those pastors that is obsessed with it. Now, when I planted a church when I was 31, it was a little bit obsessive. Yeah. And that's like a stressful thing because like you want to make it, we got to make it as a church. But, I'm like, I'm in it for the long haul. I don't want to burn out. So one of the things I think about our jobs, and we don't just talk about us, but it's like there are weeks where let's be honest, we might work 30 hours. Yep. And the next week we might work 65 or 70, because of the demands, because of what's going on. Sometimes it's like, if nothing extra happens in the week, no extra meetings, no counseling appointments, no funerals, no weddings, no whatever. I mean, sometimes you're like, I can get my work done in like 3 days. And then some days it's like, I got to work Friday and Saturday to get things done. And that's just the ebb and flow. And if you are a person that is a quiet quitter, you're like, some weeks, if I get my work done, I'm just going to sit here and put in my time, do what I have to do, but I'm not working extra the next week, whatever. It's all about, I think, the person, whether you love your job. And I think it's not fair for us to sit here and say we understand just because we worked in, restaurants when we were before ministry, what it's like to work in a job that some people are listening that doesn't feel like it has as great a purpose. Right. And so, they don't feel like their role matters that much in the company. They don't have that much say in the company. And sometimes that's the employer's fault. Their manager, whoever their boss is, doesn't engage them enough to make them feel like they matter. Yeah. That's kind of how I want to bring this. We're going to start to land it here. Is one, I want to talk about some different situations or circumstances that kind of change this conversation a little bit. And then I'm going to end by there's a biblical thing I want to add to this conversation. Good. But I want to start with that. Let's talk about the people that maybe have a job that is just, they've always done it and they're really good at it, but it's not fulfilling. Right? Is there a time and a place for pursuing things outside of your job? Is there a time and a place for, I work 9 to 5 and I'm good at it and I'm going to be responsive, I'm going to get things done, but I can't wait to get home because I'm going to work on my passion project. I can't wait to get home because I'm going to pour into my family. Maybe your family's how do we talk about that? Because they might feel, based on the definition of quiet quitting, whatever, like, oh, that's kind of me because I have things I care about more than my job, right? Is that inherently wrong to care about things outside of your job? There's not really anything wrong with doing your job and just doing your job. not inherently. It's like it's not sinful. It's just we're talking about how it affects your life. And I read too that quiet quitters often are looking for another job. A lot of times when you're in that mode, you're watching and you're looking for something else that might be more fulfilling. So I think there's two things there. One, a person that's doing that is either looking for another job or they've just resigned to themselves. So this is the job I'm going to do, and I'm going to invest my time in these other side things, hobbies, recreation, my family, relationships. And I don't really care if I get promoted, make more money. I'm not going to get fired. I'm going to do, So I think it just depends on the person,
for sure,
what they're motivated for, what stage of life they're in, and where they're going with it, whether it's just for the paycheck. And because some jobs, there's like, how do you get motivated? There's some jobs I don't know how you get motivated for,
but some people love it.
Yeah.
But and then do you think, is there a time and a place where it is time to quit and it is time to move on? How do people know when that time has come?
Absolutely. Sometimes it takes, when you get into that phase of quiet quitting, I think you can, some people it's like a downward slope. There's some people that are doing that once were very motivated, dynamic, passionate, and for whatever reason, they've just kind of gone into this place of quiet quitting. A lot of times they're on the downward slope. So eventually they're going to get worse at their job, and then their boss is going to have to talk to them, and then they're going to be on probation, or they're going to get to the point where they're going to get fired, quietly fired. Or
it might go up for a little bit.
Yeah, or they might rebound, quietly fired, or they might try harder.
Yeah.
But I think there's a point where, like, if you can't do the job well and you're not going to try anymore and it's hurting the performance of the company or whatever it is, whoever you work for, there's a point where, there's time to move on. You don't have to stay in the same job the rest of your life. People change careers, they change companies, they change, and that's a good thing. It can give you, like, especially if you were once a really highly motivated person and you've lost your passion for that and you want to have more passion about what you do. Because if you talk about work, it's probably 40 hours a week, at least. So not always these days, but you want to do something that you enjoy, hopefully. So I think you should change. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think sometimes those passion projects and those things, like, God allows those things to turn into something bigger. And I think there's a time and a place to maybe, I'm going to take a bold step and step away from the job I've always known or the thing I've always done and pursue this full time,
Right. Launching
Yeah. And I've heard people talk about the fact that, sometimes those things, those passion projects, those things you try to build, they require more than 40 hours a week. So you better be ready to work extra hard,
Well, right.
But I do think there's a time and place for that. So we're not saying that at all.
No.
Hey, just put your head down and work for that terrible boss and do that thing you hate day in and day out. And sometimes, yes, you do need to have a little bit of grit, a little bit of integrity and work the job that you're, assigned to work. Right. But there is a time and a place, I do think, too, in this conversation of, like, sometimes God is calling you away from a job or calling you away from a thing, and that's okay too.
How many people out there are doing jobs that they didn't go to college for?
Yeah.
Or if they didn't go to college, they're doing a job that you would have never expected because it just, life happens and you realize what you love and what you don't love, and your loves can change. Like, you might be doing something, 10 years from now that you never would have thought you would have enjoyed doing.
Totally.
You didn't even know about it, or you developed as a person.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So I want to end kind of transitioning to, kind of a biblical application here.
Yeah.
First things first is I do think that God is a God that wants us to work. I do think that God honors work. I do think there's a lot in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, that talks about work and how to work and how Christians should work and all those types of things. And so I do think that's important to make note of, as God is not just like, just have fun. Like, God wants us to work. He put that in us and he worked. He created the planet Earth, and so I do think that's important to say. But I do think that God gave us skills and abilities and things we care about, and he wants to use those things for work, to glorify him. And so I want to say that, but Colossians 3:23 and 24, Paul says this. He says, work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as your reward, and that the master you are serving is Christ. Another way we could put that last part is the boss that you're working for is Christ. We don't have to bring up this, but the cheesy thing that I know is written into our Constitution here at Sycamore Creek is, I don't know the exact wording, so I want you to do it.
Oh.
This is what, Jesus is the CEO?
Is that it? I think it's like, it says something, I don't know whoever wrote it. Sorry. but it says something like Jesus is the CEO of our church. I'm like, how does that work?
Right. Logistically, how does that play out?
We have an empty chair at every meeting, and we say Jesus is there. I mean, like, of course.
In principle,
yes.
Great.
I mean, like, Christ is the head of the church, but he's a CEO of Sycamore Creek. We've been talking about like working on our Constitution, bringing it up to date a little bit. That's a project Christy has on our board. But anyway, what's the question? So I think working that verse I've used in Colossians many times when I've done messages about work and about how we should view our work, and we should always do our best. And so that's just a hard thing though to define. Like, is our best what we do in the parameters of the 40 hours, or is it going above and beyond? Well, we all have different, I guess, feelings about that, and I don't think it's our job to judge everybody that, has a line that they draw. So
totally. I just, I think that's a good way for us to end, is work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for Christ, not for people, and I was reading something the other day that kind of talked about the feeling of discontentment. And this feeling of, I just wish I was doing something more. I wish that I had a different job. I wish that, and you're just not content in the life that you're living. Right. And the author that wrote this, he started talking about how as Christians, we should never be anything less than content, because everything we have is already more than what we deserve. And it was kind of this whole point of, if you are a Christian and you understand what Jesus has done for you and what God has done for you, no matter what you're going through, no matter how bad your job is, no matter how much you hate it, no matter if you don't have a job, whatever your current status is, whatever it is, you already have more than you deserve. Because what we deserve is pretty bad if you read Scripture. I mean, we deserve death, we deserve judgment, we deserve all these things. Right. So therefore, anything other than that is more than what we deserve in this life.
Right.
And I think that's just, it might sound super deep, whatever, but that's a good perspective for us to have.
I think it's a good,
Is like when we focus on the fact that, as people, the fact that we have breath in our lungs is a gift. The fact that we get to live in a house is a gift. The fact that we have these things is a gift. And therefore, no matter what we're going through, it's already more than what we deserve. I think that's a kind of a good perspective you can take to your work. I might hate the project that I'm doing. I might hate the season of work I'm in. I might not agree with every coworker that I'm with. I might not like my boss or love my boss. But everything I have is already more than I deserve.
Absolutely. I think that's a great thing, because especially people that are your age, and not you, but people your age that are getting into the workforce, sometimes can have these expectations that are ridiculous about what it's supposed to be like and how fulfilling every day is supposed to be. And then the real world smacks them in the face, and they're like, this job is terrible. I'm going to get another job. I'm like, when people ask me and talk to me, like, and I've counseled people on this, it's like, just don't make rash decisions. Let it play out a little bit. I promise you, the grass isn't necessarily going to be greener. And
sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is. But and and in ministry, same thing too. Like, I've seen people that, just thought, man, this is just awful here. And not Sycamore per se, but like, I've been at multiple places and people complaining, and I look back at some of the times when I was a youth pastor in the second church I served in. It was great, but there was things that was irritating. Like, can't wait to leave here. It's going to be so much better. And I look back and thinking, those were some of the best times. And it was a great staff, and it was a great situation. Everything is not going to be perfect in any job. There's always going to be frustrations. And I don't know if you wanted to talk about this as we get ready to close, but just in the idea of quiet quitting, I read an article it's talked about quiet quitting is more than just your work. It's like, you can quiet quit friendships, you can quiet quit on your marriage, you can quiet quit on your parenting, and it's not good. And those things that matter, but sometimes there might be a relationship you want to quiet quit on because you don't want to ghost somebody, because that causes a confrontation. So you just quietly do less with them. You kind of back off on that, but. When I mentioned this topic to you, I said, I think there's people that they quietly quit on God. They quietly quit on their relationship with God. Do you think that's true? Like, think of the description we started with, doing the bare minimum to have a relationship with God, not going above and beyond, not trying.
What's expected?
What is that? What is it? What is that today? What is expected?
I think maybe pandemic has kind of expedited this too. I think what's expected of being a Christian now is way lower than what it used to be. And I think what biblically is expected as a Christian is just not what's expected in the world we live in. If I just go to church and I just show up.
But how often? Like 1.2 times a month?
Maybe let me redefine it. If I just say I go to church, or say, I go to Sycamore Creek, or say I'm a Christian, then that's kind of good enough. And we have to understand that, no, there's actually some expectations that come with being a Christian. There's actually some things that God's going to ask you to do and not do. And part of it is submitting yourself to that and being okay with the fact that God's going to ask you to give some things up. God's going to ask you to change. God's going to ask you to do some things. And so, I think.
But do I have to do those things to have salvation?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to do the minimum.
But because of your salvation, you should want to do those things.
Correct.
And because of those salvation, if you've truly experienced salvation, Scripture calls it a heart surgery. You're no longer yourself. You're no longer living for yourself. Yeah. So therefore, those desires, those things are going to slowly start to change.
You're preaching to the choir here. I know all that, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I think we live in a culture today where there's a lot of people that quietly quit on their faith.
Totally.
But deep down, they say, I believe in Jesus for my salvation.
Yeah. And they do.
And they do. And they can quote it to you, and they can tell you. And at one time, they were more committed. They were going above and beyond. And we might define that as being at church faithfully every week, serving, giving, going to a small group, reading your Bible on your own, praying. And all those things that are what we would maybe say a fully devoted disciple, going above and beyond. And then, now it's like the minimum. What do I have to do to still keep my salvation? Because wait a minute.
Or at least have others think that I'm still a Christian.
Yeah, or how people look at me and it's interesting.
Yeah, totally.
But I think the cultural phenomenon of quiet quitting encompasses a lot of different areas of our lives.
Yeah.
Work is the primary one that it comes from.
But I think it bleeds into, like you said, relationships, home life, church. Absolutely. I think it starts to come into all of those things. Yeah, this is a great way to end.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people might be quiet quitting on God and not even realize it.
Yeah.
So
wow. That's
good. Wow. Awesome. Well, any other closing thoughts there?
People might be quiet quitting on God and not even realizing.
That's it.
Wow. That's just a truth bomb right there. You dropped it. Let's go.
You kind of set it up. So
well, good job.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap on this episode. Unless there's anything else that you want to add to this conversation, I think it can serve as a reminder for us at our jobs or just at home in our faith, all these different areas of our lives, to kind of check ourselves and realize okay, are we doing the best that we can do? Are we giving it our all, or are we quiet quitting on these different things?
Yeah.
So I think this is good.
Good conversation.
But we will see you next week on another episode of the In All Things podcast. Please let us know what you want to see at the rest of this season. We're kind of starting to head to the end of this.
Are we halfway? Or
probably a little over halfway.
Okay.
And we have some exciting things coming up in the next couple weeks. We have some guests planned out. We have a live podcast on October 30th here at Sycamore Creek on a Sunday morning. So some different things coming up, exciting times, and then we'll be off for the rest of the year. So let us know what you want to hear and see in this podcast. And that's it. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the In All Things podcast. Our challenge for you today is to send this episode to one person. Seriously, think of somebody right now that could use this conversation and send it to them. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic ideas, please send them to podcast@sycamorecreek.org, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sycamore Creek Church so that you can always see what's going on in our world. If this conversation helped you at all, make sure you share it, leave a review, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on a single episode. We love you, God loves you, and we'll see you next week on the In All Things podcast.